Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to The Insanity Continues. It is now June. Yep, it's June, everyone. How we got there, I don't know. Time has become completely, we keep saying this, but it just, as every day goes along, it just seems to get more and more slippery, perhaps is a good word. It's June 3rd. And I don't know. I don't even know where to start off. I mean, obviously we've got the usual shit. Like we've got all these riots that are going on in the States, and they're spreading all over the place now. They're protesting in England, and they're protesting in Ireland, and they're protesting in Canada, and they're protesting in Germany. And
isn't it like we just went a notch more crazier than the last months?
Well, I just said to Nick before we went live, it's kind of like we have literally made the meme into reality, because since January 2020, we've been doing this. Oh, and next month it's going to be, we've been posting all these memes of like, oh, next month, and it shows like the aliens landing, or next month and it's the zombies, and but it's kind of been like that, right? Like here we are, June. Boom. Now we've got riots all over the place, like out of control. Okay, now let's rephrase this. We are being told that it's out of control riots. Now, Christy was just saying that any protests that have happened in her city have been very quiet. Anne was talking about in Dublin, there was a big protest in Dublin. It was all very quiet. It was very peaceful. There was no issues. So let's call it what it is. We know that there's spots of violence. We know there's spots of stuff is getting completely nuts, right? We know that it's paid protesters. We know that it's Antifa. We know that it's George Soros promoted and paid for. We now know that there were all those things of literally pallets of bricks just left in random places where they knew the protesters would be. Like, here's an invitation. Look, have a brick. Throw it through a window. On you go. And we now know.
But look at the company that delivered them.
That's exactly it. We now know that
bricks,
it's Acme Bricks. First of all, it's called Acme. Like, hello? Are we Coyote and Roadrunner much? Which is funny. But we now know who's on, like Berkshire Hathaway, which is Warren Buffett, and George Soros, and Bill Gates have all been tied to this company in one way, shape, or form or another. So we've got videos of people all in the block in the riot gear, etc., throwing bricks and stones through windows, and then them being outed as being police officers. Like now, it's everywhere. It's been really, really interesting to watch. It's the general public themselves has had a fucking enough. Where we always have known. I just watched Joe Rogan. There was a clip, because Joe Rogan will put out his big 2-3 hour interviews, and then he'll pick a section and he'll put out a small piece from the show. And he put out this clip talking about all this, talking about the bricks being conveniently laid at the side of the road, and the fact that there have been police officers who've been caught and outed. That people are, the average public, like I said, they're sick and tired of it, because they're watching these videos and going, I know that guy. That guy's my next door neighbor. He's a fucking cop. I know, and they're being outed everywhere. Now, the thing is that this isn't new, right? And he touches on this in the video when he says, like, this isn't new. Nero fucking burned Rome. as an excuse. Hitler fucking blew up a city in Germany to mobilize the public into wanting to respond and retaliate, right? So it's not new. And these paid protesters, we know, like I was talking about the G20 meeting in Toronto. I don't know how many years ago that was. Like that's got to be 10, 12 years ago now, at least, where we outed, like it was fully outed that there were these guys who were setting cars on fire and throwing bricks through windows, and people were taking videos and photos of them going, well, you're kind of stupid, you're going to dress like a protester, maybe you should take off your police boots. And there were pictures of like these guys being arrested, and they're lying on the ground and they're wearing cop boots. Like at one point, there's a cop kneeling on the ground, so the bottom of his boot is sticking up, and the protester is kneeling on the ground, the bottom of his boot sitting up, and they're the exact same pair of fucking boots. So this isn't new. This goes on every single time there's a protest. Every single time there's a protest that goes violent, it's these paid protesters, these paid provocateurs who are sent in to literally push things. But here's
hey,
interesting.
you see all the did you see all the videos people have documented this time? There was one video I saw where they had like a police pickup truck. They got caught unloading bricks somewhere in an alley in police uniform, and then there were so many other videos. But it is so amazing with this riot. We see so many bad shit, but we also see amazing stuff. Where like what was it
stuff.
in New York, where like I don't know, 20 black people protected one Hispanic cop from the mob and stuff like that, or where all the neighbors come together and protect their neighborhood, right? So the weird thing I think is, if we don't have like a gigantic jump in corona in 2 weeks, all of this is bullshit, and everyone will notice this. I think that will be the watershed moment.
This is the thing that is interesting about what's playing out right now. It's kind of like in the lead up to it, people have been and we've been talking about this for the last 6 months of 2020, that people are waking up to all this shit. People are going, what the hell? People go, what the hell? What the hell? What? And they're researching it because they've been stuck at home on lockdown. So now they have all the access to the internet. We're going to research the fuck out of all this shit. So they do. But then you have this protest stuff start. And it's different this time. There is a difference this time. Because there's always that stuff that you just said, Bossy. There's always the people who stand up and look after the other people, you know, who protect other people, who stand up as a community, etc. But what we're seeing this time is an exponential growth of that. Like where people have just all of a sudden gone like, no, we know what's going to happen. We've seen what's going to happen, and we're not going to allow this to happen. But at the same time, the response that is being played out from the governmental sides is also been exponentially increased. Martial law is being put in place all over America. And Donald Trump made that speech, I'm not sure when he made it, if it was yesterday or the day before, where he basically said he has told the governors that they are to call out the militias. And if they choose to not do that, he's going to send the federal military in and make the decision for them. Well, this is an exponential increase in force, an exponential increase in this situation, a situation that we've seen lots of times before. This isn't our first rodeo. We've seen these riots before. But this time it's different because everything is increased. The pressure on it, the speed at which it ignited and spread increased much, much faster. But there's shit going on that is intensely crazy. And I've said to a lot of people, like, I mean, and it's so funny. I'm gonna backtrack here for a second. Is Amina with us? Amina's not here with us. Oh, but I think Megan is. We've been talking. They've been talking about, what this year is gonna fucking bring, and we're seeing this increase. Megan, can you come out and talk for a second? Do you have a moment? I know it all depends on your voice of whether you can actually come out and talk. There's this exponential increase of stuff that we've all seen before, but it's gone up on a much bigger level now. It's jumped to a new level. And this is Amina and Megan and Jules have talked about the astrology, and we talked about this in the lead up to 2020 and all of this kind of stuff that's happening. This is not going to stop. And there's been a lot of people who've kind of been like, oh, well, over the coronavirus, we'll get over the hump of that, and then things go back to normal, like the public trying to go, we'll go back to normal, we'll go back to normal. And I'm like, there's no going back to normal. First of all, we don't want to go back there normal, because it sucks. Hello, Megan, my love.
Hi. There's no normal. There hasn't been normal since 2012.
No.
And for everybody that's like, oh, when is it going to get normal? No, like this is, I don't like to say the new normal because of all the corona crap, but this has been the new normal since 2012. And, it's about taking advantages of the small pauses in insanity when you can, because it's unfolding insanity constantly. And yeah, it's quite interesting. So the riots, if you look at Saturn in Aquarius is kind of notorious for rioting and for rebellion and people really, reaching to take their power back. Saturn is about the boundaries and the structures, how we navigate through them and how we push against them. Aquarian energy is ruled by Uranus, so it's innovative, it's rebellious, it's both the collective, it's both the people. So this is the people pushing back against authority. Saturn's going to leave Aquarius on July 1st and return into Capricorn. So I've been predicting all along, especially with the corona stuff, I think we're going to see more of an authoritarian clampdown over the summer. And then I think because we're going to have some crazy intense, they're called cardinal squares in the fall, that's going to really there's going to be more of a push. Like we're going to be pushed by them and we're going to want to push back. And then when Saturn moves back into Aquarius to stay at the end of the year with Jupiter is an expanding influence. And then into 2021, into 2022, December 17th.
It is. I was going to say it's right at the end of December. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be Saturn moves into Aquarius, and then we're going to have the solstice. And then right after the solstice, Jupiter's going to join Saturn right on that 0 degree of Aquarius, which is a really, the first and the last degree of any sign is really crucial. So with Saturn hovering at the last degree, as it's getting ready to move back into Capricorn, we're seeing all these riots. So last time Saturn was in Aquarius in 91, 92, we had, the grunge scene was super big. We also had the Rodney King riots. Just think of like what was going on in the world in the early 90s and how the energy is really similar. And I brought up grunge because it was a new way, like it was a new type of music. It was, you know what I mean? And you're seeing
a new way of expressing yourself.
Yeah, and you're seeing that with people at home, like artists at home doing more of their stuff over social media. Like it's a similar thing of, trying to push against the boundaries to connect with the collective through their art. So you can look at it in a positive way like that, or you could look at the riots. So last time was the Rodney King riots. And then if you go back another Saturn cycle, well, now you're in like 62, 63. You have the JFK assassination and you have Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. This is completely typical of Saturn and Aquarius, this kind of energy. Saturn moving back into Capricorn, that's going to be oppressive. If you start looking at the outer planets, like we feel full moons, we feel the inner planets because they're personal. We feel them briefly. with the exception of them going retrograde and then maybe holding on to an intense aspect for a longer period because of the slowing down of momentum. They're just transitory, like a crazy shit show of a day or two. Outer planets are long transits. They affect more than just ourselves internally. They affect everything externally, which then ripples into the internal and how we navigate through everything. So we just talked about Saturn. Next is Uranus. Well,
can I ask?
last
Can I
time
just
Uranus
pause
was
for a second, Megan? I want to ask you one question. There's 3 people
yeah.
have posted this one piece separately in the Unfuckers crew. Okay, and it is.
That's what I'm going to address.
The last awesome. Go. Shut up. I'll shut up. I'll just sit here and smoke my cigarette. You go.
Yeah, no worries. No, I've seen that going along, and I just got tired of saying the same thing over, so I just started, I just kept my response copied, and I just kept pasting it wherever I went, because it was too much to type. So Uranus, the bringer of change, revolution, it shakes things up. It's very electric energy. Last time we had it, they forgot Uranus in the meme, by the way. So we were in the time of the Depression that was leading into World War II. We're not quite in the same degrees as when World War II happened.
Okay.
And then if you think about it, Uranus will move into Gemini, which will happen, 5.5, 6 years. And that's all about propaganda. But that's a whole nother ball of wax that we'll approach in the future. But yeah, when Uranus gets to the exact same degrees as when World War II started, we're going to be in 2023 and 2024. Well, what is really significant about 2023 and 2024 is that Pluto is going to move into Aquarius for a little bit, for basically the spring of 23, and then it's going to retrograde out, and then in 24 it's back to stay for a long time, because Pluto is a slow moving, menacing motherfucker. So that's going to really ignite all this. If you think about it, like, Pluto is a dismantling force. It's kind of like an agent of chaos that comes in to take shit down. So Saturn will go through this area. Anything that has reached, anything that's overreach of AI, of fucking with the collective, anything of that kind of insanity, Pluto's going to start to dismantle that starting in 2023. And you're also going to have Uranus at the same degree of when World War II started. And the time before that, when Uranus was in Taurus, was when Wells Fargo was founded. And it was also the end of the Irish potato famine. So Taurus energy really rules like material goods and wealth and things that are of value, and how we receive them, or where we have a lack of receiving them. Because if you think about it, World War II, I mean, I know there's more to it than that, but it was a huge catalyst to move out of the Depression, which was a monetary thing. And we're in the Depression energy of Uranus right now. We have to start climbing into those later degrees, which is when the war got ignited, which started, different kind of industry, which let us out. So that's kind of interesting in and of itself. And that's just 2 planets. So now we move on to Neptune. Neptune is about deception. Neptune kind of likes to pull the smoke and mirrors thing. It on the high side, it rules like glamour and Hollywood and mysticism, and on the low side, it's like just flat out like deception, lies, illusion, trying to fool you, all that kind of craziness. So in 1527, and I'm assuming this is the sack of Rome, the fall of Rome that they're talking about in that meme, because there are so many fucking sacks of Rome and burnings of Rome and falls of Rome. It's interesting you brought up Nero, because I was looking at the chart from 64, 80, when Nero and Rome and all that, and it's a wild chart, and it happened like within hours after an eclipse. And we're about to head into eclipses on Friday. And usually we have 2 eclipses per season. This time we have 3, so why not? Why not? But anyway, Neptune was where it was.
Rome
now,
with, like, the fall of Washington, D.C. and the Vatican. That would be awesome.
That would be so fucking awesome. So Pluto and Neptune are in the same spots as they were in the 1527 sack of Rome. Neptune was also where it is when it, leading into the American Civil War. Not the actual civil, like the exact degrees of where we are right now is the lead into. So think of just how when you want to start a war and you want to do disinformation and stuff like that, you would want an agent that causes chaos and confusion and can swindle people with deception, just like Neptune. Well, you take a cycle back, and it also puts you into the 1692 witch trials.
Yeah.
That was, and look at the way people are being right now. It is like a witch hunt.
It is,
If
very much
you,
so.
how dare you go shop for something non-essential? Like, you know what I mean? And then you have all the keyboard warriors, and it's like a witch hunt. Or how dare you be anti-vax? Or how dare you be pro-vax? Like, everything is very divided, and it is like an informational witch hunt where people are very emotionally attached to their beliefs. With the South Node now being in Saturn, you're going to see people getting really, anybody that's too caught up in their beliefs, they're way on the wrong track, because the South Node is always the opposite of where we need to be going. But they'll also use the South Node against us. So they will use our beliefs against us to incite rioting, perhaps. You know what I mean? So that's something to kind of be aware of. And then Pluto, not only was he part of that particular sack of Rome, he was also in these degrees with the American Revolution. And when Martin Luther King came up with his 95 Thesis and, hung it on the door and was like, fuck this. There's like that's Pluto energy. It's like, fuck this. Like, I need to tear something down because I have something better that can take its place. And that's just like the outer planets. The inner planets are going wild this month too, because with Venus having gone retrograde, she was holding a square for a really long time to Neptune. And this is really changeable, mutable. It's energy that changes things quickly, so we need to adapt on our feet as we're running. And everything is so confusing. Nobody knows what's going on. People are just the worst thing going, you know what I mean, with all the different narratives and this, and trying to come at people that don't align with their beliefs or their stories. And we have Saturn right now as it's about to leave Aquarius, and we do have all this rioting happening. It's making really weird angles to Mars and Venus, which is our action and what we find valuable in the world. And it's kind of like a challenging angle, like a square, but it's a half a square and a square and a half. So it's kind of more like subtle and insidious, if that makes any sense. And I just want to throw this out there before I'm done rambling about the astrology, because it is crazy. Like, we've got all these, there's going to be a lot of forced change coming through June. And like I said, you're going to have to be quick on your feet to kind of pivot through it. And then we start eclipses. We have 2 lunar eclipses and a solar eclipse. That's going to be fucking wild. But there's an astrologer that I absolutely love. I've been following him for years. His name's David Palmer, and he goes by the handle of the Leo King. And he posted this article a few weeks ago on his personal Facebook page, and it was really, really interesting. It was called Pathogens in Politics. And I don't know if anybody's come across it. I haven't really seen it go around social media more than on his stuff. But what this was about, it was a study done, I believe it was by a psychologist, and it was about like probabilities of certainties. And the example that was used was that a 0.5 is basically a certainty for an outcome. That's like saying that if you are a person that you have a high IQ and you do well in school and you come from like an upper middle class family, so you're not struggling financially, there is a 0.5 certainty that you will likely go on to some form of college or university. It makes sense, right? Smart kid does well in school, parents have money, probably they will go on to higher education. So that's a 0.5. So they were listing about how in certain times of crises, we actually, as a society, reach for more authoritarian style governments, and that we become more authoritarian within ourselves. That made me think of the whole witch trial things, like, oh yeah, there you go. But they started ranking everything in order of certainty, and war was number 2 with a 0.5. What do you suppose number 1 was? was infectious disease with a 0.7.
Oh, how convenient.
So I just thought that would be some interesting food for thought, that infectious disease is a 0.7. I'm not saying this is what happened, because nobody really knows what happened, and I'm not going to get, caught up in a belief of I think this is what it is, because I don't know what it is. But supposing somebody was trying to make the society reach for authoritarian leadership, would you not want to use the thing that has the highest probability of an outcome? For sure you would.
Yep.
So if this decision was made, let's say it was made in late 2019, when, these things from Bill Gates and Fauci start coming about, what if this and what if that, and then all of a sudden the very next thing that pops up, well, let's just take it and run with it. Because it's not proven to be as devastating as the projections have shown that it could be. Well, that would make sense if they just grabbed the first thing and ran with it. Not saying that's what happened, but it's been spinning around in my mind. Yeah, well, yeah, because the tower is tumbling and it's going to keep falling, and they might have their moments where they can push back, but eventually we will push back harder. With all this Aquarian energy moving through the outer planets, we're going to have Saturn, which is, kind of in the middle between inner and outer, but it's going to move into Aquarius. And then it's going to square its, like the ruler of Aquarius, Uranus. That is going to, there are going to be big revolutionary movements from the people into 2021. And then to have Pluto move there, there's no way that major pushback is not happening. And I think they're trying to do what they can to make us reach for the security of the authority that they can offer us.
Yep.
That's just my 2
cents. It comes a time
cents.
where everyone needs to watch V for Vendetta again. We watched it. We sat down and watched it a couple of months ago, and there's some very big points in that when they're setting up the whole authoritarian and how the people must rely upon us. They cannot be given the option to rely on themselves. They must rely upon us. Bossy, go ahead. Megan Bossy's got a question for you.
Megan, what I saw yesterday was pretty weird. I don't know if any of you saw this. So with all the protests going on, there was like sort of a peer pressure in social media with all these avatars turning into black squares, right? Like to show solidarity. But you could see that square also as a cube, right? And since you talked about Saturn and a little bit of squares, wouldn't it be like a perfect ritual with Saturn? Like if everyone did this yesterday, like astrology wise?
I can comment on that.
Yeah, go ahead. You heard me calling you. You're so funny. You're so funny.
We're tuned. I just came in at the point where Megan was talking towards the end. I'm pretty sure she said some amazing stuff that I didn't get to hear, but I'm not sure if Megan mentioned about the sign Pisces and Mars going through Pisces, and Pisces being a sign that we've been living in an era of, and this is closing and coming to an end. And Pisces represents slavery. It represents like complete submission. And a sort of slavery of the soul. And Mars, war and aggression that comes in and asserts itself in that sign, trying its best to fire through a water-based sign that is totally against it. And yet this square with an eclipse coming in Sagittarius and Gemini, and people talking and people believing things and people standing on their soapboxes and people tweeting, and the black squares in this is represented by Mars in Pisces, because Mars conjunct Neptune, the planet that rules Pisces, in Pisces is part of this square. And the only way out is to go to the opposite sign of Virgo and apply service. So when you can see those posts of people who are, yeah, they're putting in squares for solidarity, that black square symbol. But what it means deep down, if we take out the Pluto and the Saturn and all that stuff that's going on, that's underneath it all, that's triggering it all from the beginning when the South Node was in Capricorn, this is about how we clean it up. And if you've seen those posts of people sweeping their streets and putting fires out and clearing rubble and cleaning their neighborhoods and owning those neighborhoods through service, that is the Virgo. We have paid respect to nurses and frontliners and people in those positions who are risking their lives for a pandemic. But this is the time we pay that lip service to those people who are serving their communities by trying to help their neighborhood rise up from the ashes like a phoenix. They are the ones in service now. Those people who, no name, just clean the streets, that is volunteer work. Their volunteer work is the most important thing. And if we see there's one kind of like Mars, Venus aspect, yeah, we've got Mars in Gemini, which is square. We've got Venus in Gemini, which is square. Mars in Pisces, but Venus is retrograding, which means that we can go back on some of those words that we say and execute some love through our media, through our social media, through our posts, execute some words of love, because we have a powerful connection to that Mars right now. That Mars energy is the end, it's the culmination, it's the point where we realize we have been slaves all along. Everyone has been. We have worked through that energy to now when we reach up and we say, okay, enough is enough. What actually has it been all this while? We have been persecuted and enslaved as a human race. We're reaching the end of that. Yep. And now it's time for humanity. Those squares are everybody locking together. I think it's not necessary because it's in action that we need to work. But we can speak and we can say something and do something. And what we do is just quietly clean up our streets, quietly clean up the rubble and the rogues and the villains with no need to claim any social justice warriorship, no need to be, anti-fascist. Yeah.
Anti-fascist.
And does
that make them Uncle Fascist?
I don't know, but anti-fa, I don't know what it is, but that's the only way, without the aggression, to go to the opposite side. Don't have to increase the violence through still being a slave. I mean, if you look at it deeply, that whole Vatican thing is a slavery issue. Mm. And that's where we're reaching to dissolve that. How are we going to rise up in an Aquarian age if we're still bound by soul contracts? We can't.
Amina, do you find it interesting now that we're cusping out of Pisces into the age of Aquarius that Regulus has moved out of Leo into Virgo? So during the age of Pisces, we were in the kingdom of man and religion. And now it's like we're moving into the kingdom of the collective, where, being of service is the new superpower.
And being pure.
That makes sense. Like, being kingdom-led, out of kingdom-led into purity-led and service-led.
Absolutely.
And, being here to heal the reality for the collective. Like, to me, that's, I know it's a weird
Absolutely.
angle together.
I mean,
But Virgo and Aquarius
there's a
together.
wisdom behind these circles moving at different speeds around each other. I mean, our tropical system is based on the sun. The first day of the year of the spring, the first day of spring is the beginning of it. And there were 360 days in a year, and the sun had, you know, one notch for every day in a circle. And those planets that would go around that circle had a backdrop of constellations, and the fixed stars represented the cross. And that cross has now shifted. So we have that energy and we can use it. So really, it's not about kings anymore. It's not about the royal leader. It's about what do we do in our service to each other?
In self-responsibility. And that kind of comes into the more that they are trying to push people to become completely reliant upon authority to tell them what to do. And with each move towards that, it removes responsibility off people. Do you know what? People no longer have to stand up for their own, be responsible for their own actions. It's just, I'm just doing what I was told. I'm just doing what I was told. And that's the shift that I see, is that walking into this place of being self-responsible, no longer responsible because Big Brother tells you to, because the kingdom, the king, the law, whatever. The reason you are responsible for your actions is because you are responsible for it's that self-responsibility. And when you work from that place,
You're so bang on, Danny.
when you work from that place, that's the place where we talk about community. We talk about exactly what you're talking about, the service to community, service to looking, and we talked about these before Amina came in. We talked about the things that are going on in these riots that they're not talking about, are the amazing things of people protecting other people, people standing up as a community and being like, yeah, you're not coming into our community and destroying it. People standing together, people working together peacefully, like you said, without a huge fanfare, without having to, you know, it's just, they're there, they're cleaning up the streets, they're cleaning up what's going on. And that is that really big shift that I think that we're waiting to see
What you're
on a
talking
much
about,
bigger
Danny,
scale. Yeah.
Exactly what you were just talking about. That is kind of like the gift set up in the astrology. The astrology always has a way out for us, and it's called the North Node. The North Node is the compass point that the universe is directing us to go toward. Whenever we're in crazy energy, this is the way through. And with the nodes having switched into Sagittarius and Gemini, the North Node in Gemini, it focuses on community. It wants us to focus on the micro, aka the individual, versus the macro, which is the collective and the society in general. The world is going to recalibrate into however the chips are going to fall, with or without my participation. I'm responsible for me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm responsible for my own garden, my own home, my own inner self, my own community. And that's where people can impact the most change right now for the good, is within themselves, within their home base, and within their community. That's the way out.
I agree. No, I agree.
It's
And what
really
have we been talking about? Like for years now. We've been literally talking on this subject for years. Hopefully in preparation for this moment. Go ahead, Bossy.
It is amazing how pinpoint accurate that is, because, you know, I mean, I said a couple of times that I have the feeling with all the lockdown and now even with the martial law that they trying to keep us away from each other. But what Amina and Megan just said, and you, Danny, that actually these energies are wanting us to come together, to wise up, to learn from another, to be a collective, that one has something certain, he brings it into the collective, everyone learns from that, and that can only happen if we come together, even if it's like teaching one another visually by hand, or if it's just on a mental aspect, like those morphogenetic fields that are touching, or like our auras or our magnetic fields that are touching. And it's so amazing, even with the riots, some people, I mean, more people than usually have learned to see the bait, right? Like that one provocateur that bashed in the windows. People came immediately and asked him, what the fuck are you doing? Go away. Are you a cop? Right? Like people see already the bait, because it seems like the energy and what you just said is there is something to the collective that is happening now, and they trying to keep us isolated, that this event goes past and not affecting us all.
What you were just saying, Bazzi, it was making me think of how the North Node is in Gemini. And Gemini, I mean, I just touched on a couple of its aspects, but also another thing, it's about facts and information and truth. And Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury in other religions or other, ancient philosophies has different names. One of them is Thoth. One of them is Hermes Trismegistic. So when you start looking into the Hermetic teachings of just, that pure knowing that is echoed from within and without, maybe that's what it is, that they don't want us to come together because they don't want the true knowledge to flow. But really, by forcing us all into our separate corners, we're actually finding the knowledge is still coming to us, and we're assimilating it within ourselves and turning the facts into knowing, so that we, like you were saying, we can teach and we can share. It's really interesting what you just said. Like that really has my mind spinning about where this is going and kind of like the why of it. So thank you for that.
No, we thank you.
Listen, I'm so glad that you brought up like the ancient shit and the Hermetic teachings, etc., because that's the rabbit hole I've been down for like the last few months, like really going into this stuff and pulling the threads out and re-looking stuff that you've read, stuff that you've gone through, information you've kind of looked at years and years ago, and now I'm re-looking at everything again. So I talked about it last week. I just read Holy Blood, Holy Grail again, which was so much more impactful this time compared to what it was in the 80s when I originally read it, and I knew fucking nothing. I almost finished a book by Tracy Twyman that I picked up because of reading Holy Blood, Holy Grail, which is called The Merovingian Mythos by Tracy Twyman. Brilliant fucking book as well, because she takes all the information that's kind of laid out in Holy Blood, Holy Grail, but she takes it much farther. Like she goes way farther back and looks at like the origin stories and starts looking at the mythology and the legends and the religions and how all these characters came together. And then it just so happened, because I love how these things just flow sometimes, and you just randomly pick up a book to read and go, oh, well, isn't that an interesting coincidence? Because I just finished reading Holy Blood, Holy Grail, I needed a little bit of a break from nonfiction heavy research, so I picked out and reread The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. As you do, just light reading, just something fun. Read it, got even more out of the book reading it this time than I did when I first read it, which was when I read it. And this is the thing, when the Da Vinci Code movie came out, that's how I discovered Dan Brown as an author. Didn't see the movie, read the book first, and then came back and watched the movie. And really enjoyed it, loved what he had to say, liked the way he wrote it. So I went and I read what I thought was all of his books. Fast forward to last summer, we're in a secondhand shop, Dan Brown book. I'm like, oh, I don't think I know this one. Oh, I'll grab that. Must be a new one. And I bought it. Then it sat in my bookshelf. I never touched it. So I finished reading the Da Vinci Code, and I look up, and then across the bedroom, oh, look, I have another Dan Brown book that I haven't read yet. And it's called The Lost Symbol. And I'm like, oh, isn't that so funny? Because I'm so into looking at all this symbology stuff. I'm definitely going to read that next. Pick it up. It's not a new book. It's actually one of his older books that I've never seen or read before, and I thought I had read everything he'd written. You can ask Amina and Anne. I literally have been like every day going, oh my God, you can't believe the shit he's talking. Oh my God, you've got to read. I like, here's a PDF. You guys have to read this book. You must read this book right now. Take away all the storyline. It's all about Freemasonry, et cetera, et cetera. That's kind of the basic premise of background of the story in Washington, D.C. Pull out all that stuff. Get rid of all the religious stuff. Get rid of all the opinionated stuff, if you will, i.e. the opinionated narrative of the author. The information that is brought out in that book is mind-blowing for right now. And again, I didn't read it back in like 2010, 2012, when I was going through all my Dan Brown phase. It wouldn't have meant anything. If anything, I would have been very judgmental. Would have been like, oh, no, he's not right. Oh, no. But I didn't read it then. But I read it now after going through all this information that I've been going through. And all of a sudden been going, oh, snap. There's some pieces in here that are really, really important. And he talks about the Noetic Scientists. And one of the main characters in the book is a Noetic scientist. And what are the Noetic Scientists? This is your Masamara Emoto and the study of consciousness and how consciousness changes the water crystals. This is all the studies that we're talking about now about how consciousness is now being studied, can measurably change matter, can measurably change the outcomes. And Dan Brown puts a little proviso at the very beginning of the book saying, all the information in this book is accurate. Basically, look, all this stuff about the Noetic Sciences, all the stuff about all these different things, this is all 100% accurate. And the character in the book is talking about, and immediately I went and looked it up, and I is a true piece. So do you guys know what a random number generator is? Right, because they use this on a lot of scientific experiments, especially when you talk about quantum science, they use random generators. Did you know that on September 11th, 2001, when the 9/11 incident happened, it directly affected every random number generator around the world? Directly affected all of them. Because the emotional response of the planet, of every person on the planet to 9/11 literally had such an impact on reality that it changed the random and directly affected every random number generator on the fucking planet. Think of this in the aspects of consciousness and the power of consciousness and the power of our reactions and our actions in how we move forward on this stuff. And it's really, really interesting because the main character, you guys go out and get this book, download it, whatever you have to do. Again, it's called The Lost Symbol by Dan Brown. Take away the narrative, take away all the obvious bits of belief structure type shit to it, and just read it for what it is in the background information being brought forward. At one point, the main character, who's the scientist, says, she's talking about intention and manifestation. She doesn't call it manifestation, but that's what she's talking about. And she says it takes practice. Can you imagine if all of a sudden everyone had that ability clicked on overnight? Everything you thought about just came into being suddenly? Would be bedlam, right? It would be like you uncontrolled. And she talks about the fact of these people who have these abilities to build, they're studying in the scientific lab, who can directly affect matter, can directly affect all these different things. They practice and they hone their intent and they learn to what's the word I want to say? Channel their minds. They have spent the time to learn self-control and how to focus their intent, to be able to accurately change the reality around them. Is that not what we've been going through? We've had this discussion so many times over, especially the last year, about how manifestation is now coming like this, but there's that almost an awareness in the back of my mind always. When we all have those moments when the negative shit gets into your head, when things are really nasty and negative, that literally when that stuff starts coming in, I'm literally like, I do not consent. I did not. That's not my creation. I'm not creating that. I don't consent. And it's become second nature to me now. Literally second nature, that I find myself kind of like strike that, erase that. No, I do not consent. Rethink that instantly without even thinking about it. And is this not what we've been going through for the last few years, especially? Honing our skills, if you will, learning to be able to focus our intent, learning to be able to focus focus on things, not just learning our intent and focus, but also learning to be able to separate those old belief structures, which can color the way you perceive things, which can color the way you want to move forward, pulling those belief structures out so that when you are going forward, you're going forward from a more neutral place, open to watching what's actually happening around you. Does that make sense? Did I actually make that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. It reminds me a little bit of the Shadowrun universe, where all of a sudden at 2012, magic became a real thing again, so to speak. And it was now there. Some people turned into ogres, some into elves, and some into God knows what. But I mean, like you said earlier, when we started, with all the memes, right? Like we had this meme like, how is next month? And what is in the barrel for us even 2 months ahead, right? But I mean, I don't know how to describe it, but especially to memes. I mean, memes are nothing new. It is so old, it is new again, right? Like all the old symbols that they used sort of as a meme, right? On the temples, something in a picture that gives you something more as just a word or something, or even words combined with pictures.
That's the whole thing.
Exactly.
It's not just a picture. It's not just an image of a singular thing. It presents you with a concept.
Exactly. It is
concept.
like that. Yeah, exactly. It's like the experiment with that guy I can't pronounce, with the water, right? Like it is, you put your intention in it and you put a word in it. It is two-folded. It is like, it is a physical thing and yet it is a spiritual thing on some level.
Here's the thing. Again, there's repeating conversations that keep coming up. More and more and more, as I go through all these little rabbit holes and research, etc., you find old bits of scaffolding of belief structures hidden away. Do you know what I'm saying? You find little pieces and then you go, oh, look, another fucking bit of belief structure that's just still hanging around there that I really need to just like chuck out. And Nick and I had a huge conversation like in the middle of the night last night. And one of the things we were talking was like, beliefs are not bad. Beliefs are not a bad thing. Having a belief, and like the example I gave last night was like, I believe that my consciousness is eternal. I believe that reincarnation has been used and is part of that cycle. Not necessarily saying it's a good part of the cycle, because I don't think it is anymore. That's a belief. It's not bad as long as those beliefs are kept open so that you can continuously keep learning, keep bringing in more aspects of the information, being able to bring in more comprehension of the information, right? But there's so many pieces that I know. Same thing with reading this book with Dan Brown. I had certain visceral reactions to certain things that happened in the book. And then I analyzed it and was like, really? That was a very emotional response you had to that scene, if you will, that statement. Why? Well, because everyone knows that such and such is bad. Everyone knows that the Masons are evil. Really? How do I know that? Has anyone actually? Oh, then you analyze and go, have I ever actually done any research on this myself? Nope. Not a lick of research. I've believed everything that has been said to me by alternative media, all these other people, etc., and it triggered this reaction. But when I looked at it, I was just like, but I don't know. I don't know that. I am merely parroting what I've been told so often, over and over and over and over and over and over again. Right? So you sit there and you go, right, well, let's really, really look at it. So like Megan brought up the Hermetic texts, things like that. And that's what I've been heavily going back into and looking at. And you sit there and go, and that's exactly it, Megan. A lot of the Masons were Hermetics. Do I believe that Hermeticism is evil? No, of course not. Also, do I believe that everything is clear, cut, and dry, that there's black and there's white and there is no in between? No. We know that in life, that just doesn't exist in life. There are these places, yes, exactly, Linda, but in every Linda just said Freemasons are not evil, but there are some evil Freemasons. In every fucking organization. We see in the Democratic Party, there's some Democrats who are evil and there's some who are not evil. And there's some people who are conservatives who are evil, and there's some people who are not evil. And there's some people who are Catholic who are evil, and there's some people who are Catholic who are not evil. So to actually define everything within this scoped box, where you put everything with that label goes into that box, never to be looked at again. All of a sudden, when you start researching, you go, whoa, 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 whoa. There's more to this. And some of this stuff, again, like I've been reading this Hermetic stuff, so a lot of the stuff that came out in the Rosicrucians, things like that, there are some really important pieces for us right now in these teachings. Not as a belief structure, not as a religion, but as these are pieces that deal with reality, and allow us to open our eyes to seeing reality from a different angle. So, or maybe even say, being able to open our eyes and see more of what is playing out in reality in front of us, because your mind is not closed off to the other possibilities. There's some really interesting stuff. I feel like right now there is this it's like time, this old knowledge, these ancient knowledges are coming back out again, and are going to come back out and be shown in a way that people will be able to comprehend them without labeling them, without putting them in one box or another. But I have this feeling that this exists. Sony, the esoteric, this esoteric knowledge, this secreted away knowledge, is about to come forward again. But it's going to be coming out in a way that's going to be more comprehensible. And reading that book, like the Noetic Scientists proving all of these aspects. And then when she's arguing with Langdon, who's the star of the book, and he's trying to disprove her, and she's like, yeah, do you know where I got this experiment from? Yeah, I got this experiment from a guy from Persia who lived 4,000 years ago. He wrote about this experiment. We just built the equipment to be able to actually do what he wrote about. All of a sudden, this knowledge is coming back, but now it's being shown as a not tied to pagan beliefs, not tied to evil or good, not tied to belief structures, but be as a piece of reality itself. And again, I don't know if I actually said that very clearly. I'm trying to get a point across, but I don't think I'm doing it very well. I'm also losing my voice all of a sudden. Boy.
May I quickly bump into that, what you just said again?
Yeah.
What is very fascinating, if you have like Rosencreutzers, the Masons, or other factions of these secret knowledges, I mean, the initiation is not always the same, but it is very similar. It is like the same paradox like with training a magician. The basic training is basically for a light or for a good magician is the same as it is for a dark magician, right? Like the basics you have to learn. It is always sort of the same. No matter what angle they take, they have to get you to a certain corner to understand certain things of reality, how they work, right? Especially like overcoming fear and taking responsibility for your actions, right? Like showing someone something might be a good idea, but if you show it the wrong person, it becomes very fast out of hand.
Exactly. Exactly. And which is why when you go and you research a lot of these old these orders, that there are levels you have to attain to, because you can't just hand the initiate all the knowledge and say, hey, look, this is what you can do, have fun with it, on you go, without training them. It's the same thing of so many aspects of it. It's for example, in our family, because we all swing poi, you don't take someone who's held the poi in their hands and spun them around for 5 minutes and go, here you go, here's some fire poi, and let me light those for you. Go ahead. You don't. They have to learn. You have to learn how to wield and use those and balance them before you can move to the level of being able to play with fire, so to speak. And yeah, I mean, Megan made the point. This is exactly it. The words that we use, exactly. Occult, the word occult means hidden. The word apocalypse means to unveil, to reveal. These are words that have been heavily programmed into really negative meanings. So that when you hear the word, you automatically go, oh, and you're triggered by it. But yet, that's not what those words mean. Yeah, I mean, the magician shows as above, so below, and the card that has a cup, a sword, a pentacle, and a wand. So all four aces are with him as he stands in the garden of red and white flowers with the infinity symbol over his head. Balance. In all aspects, on all of it. I'm gonna have to I mean, and Megan, you guys should just unmute and come back out here, because you guys are going off in the chat, and it's like I can't even keep up with you both. And these are the things, right? Like, so these are pieces of old knowledge, and it's not just old knowledge that was, given to some rich old white man. This is ancient knowledge that comes from all over the planet, from whether you're talking about First Nations, whether you're talking about the down in South America and the ancient peoples there, when you talk about Africa, when we talk about Asia, we talk about the Aborigines. All these people all had the same stories. They all had the same story. They all had the same allegories. And I think that's an important thing to point out. They all had the same allegories. Yeah, Brett, universal knowledge, exactly. You find the threads of consistency, you find the threads of truth. Yeah, exactly, Megan. So this is interesting. I mean, this is one of those things, and I find it really interesting when things just flow and suddenly you're looking at new information in a new way. And in the meantime, the world is burning. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's almost that within your bubble, for me, within my bubble is this peace and calm and searching for information that is so quiet, and yet external out there is all this mass insanity, like crazy ass fucking insanity. And my microphone just fell down. And all technology is breaking to pieces. Yeah, everything I touch. Yeah, Megan, I agree. Megan just said the world needs to burn so we can rise a better one from the ashes. Pluto, Phoenix energy in Capricorn, the world. Yeah. Amina, do you feel like talking for a little bit on this subject?
Yeah, what do you want me to talk about?
Whatever you want to talk about. I have to run away for a minute. I have to run away for a minute, so you're now going to take over for a few minutes.
All right. So Megan can come on with me. Come on, Megan. This is. You just mentioned the Jenga game, and we were talking about in the chat the tarot cards and like the Tower card, and that Jenga game is very interesting because repeatedly over this year, Danny and I have been messaging each other, trying to visualize who is really at the top of all of this. Who is it? And Danny did a visualization where she saw an old man, and I saw a Jenga game, but it was like, instead of just stacked bricks, it was like stacked games of not just Jenga, but chess being played. And it was as if the last of the elite were knocking each other out by playing this game, and then everything falls down. And Danny saw this tower where she had to go and climb up through all these stairs, and she met this old man who seemed to be both Oriental and ancient at the same time. Oriental in one sense, but also like an old mythos kind of character, and he's hidden. And I said to her, in your visualization, could you just go and kick down all those towers, those games? So she said she'd try it, and it was like I was seeing what she could see. It was really, really strange, like this powerful connection of me looking into her visualization, and I felt her kick it, like back in January, I don't know if January, February, I felt her kick that whole thing down, and I felt those pieces falling down the stairs, like every chess piece and every Jenga piece falling down stone stairs inside a tower. And the man seemed like lost, unable to keep holding all his puppets and strings. So I thought I'd share that because it's very, very powerful image of, we don't know really what happens behind the scenes. We don't know who's holding power and what they're up to. But when we tap in and try and use some visualization, we do get a sense of it. And it comes in pictures and symbols. And I thought when you mentioned, we mentioned like the world burning, and then it's like Capricorn representing the world, and Pluto representing the phoenix, and the tower is like falling with fire all around it, and the phoenix is rising from the ashes, and we're building a brand new world. I thought that was really poignant, and I'd love to ask you, like, what else do you see in when you visualize this? What do you see? Knowing all those symbols and what they mean.
When you were talking about the visualization you did with Danny, I kept picturing like a 3D chess game, but almost like it spiraled up like a spiral staircase, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And what was happening on one level was like simultaneously happening. Like if a pawn fell down on like level 8, then it would like ricochet through, and the structure keeps losing its integrity, and then it starts to collapse. And then when you mentioned the old man, that was weird. I don't know, like I almost feel like, well, it's not, and I feel this is like, and I know there's knowledge that's been hidden and co-opted from us throughout the ages, but I almost feel like maybe that old man could represent, not like, I almost picture him like an old druid man with like the beard and like, you know, like the oak leaf crown, and it's like he's been forced to give the knowledge to the wrong people who were misusing it to create power for oppression, and the tower is tumbling and he's becoming free to give knowledge, you know, to humanity as a whole, and how it's received as a whole is going to be different for the individual. You know, like some people will gain more from reading the same book than others will because of their own individual insights, but it's like he's free to give the knowledge, but because he's been trapped within this spiral tower of games and chess pieces, it's like he doesn't know what to do with his freedom. He's still waiting for the direction, but the directions aren't coming because they're too busy trying to scramble to pick up all the pieces as they're falling. Does that make any sense? Like that's the way it's coming through to me.
Totally. So you see him as he's neither good nor bad. He's just being used. So he represents
he's just an agent.
cult.
Yeah,
He just is.
He's an agent of the
and the
occult.
knowledge has been co-opted, and he's allowed to be free to give the knowledge out. And it's like he's been a prisoner so long and co-opted to the quote unquote dark side. It's like he doesn't know what to do with himself, because cages can be quite comfortable.
Well,
you know what I'm talking about, right, Danny?
Okay, so I don't know what you said. I obviously am picking up what you're talking about, the old man, right? Did you talk about the fact that the last time the three of us went to go look for the old man, none of us could find him?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's always been there. I've always been able to see him. And another friend of ours, and Amina and I all went to go look for him, and we all went, he's gone, where'd he go? So
Hey, Danny, when did he go missing?
Recently.
3 weeks ago?
Okay, so recently,
just within a month.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me take this and run with it. So could that not coincide, Amina, with when the nodes shifted? Because if you think about it, the North Node now in Gemini, that is, you know, the universe is pointing us toward finding knowledge. Like, let's take the whole, like, Gemini, Mercury into Hermes, into Hermetics, like, you know, just unbiased wisdom based on nature and the cosmos unfolding around us. Well, if the North Node moved into Gemini, would that not free him? Would that not give him the opportunity to move out of this place that he's been stuck in, that, okay, like now the universe is saying, like, go and spread the word, like go and spread the knowledge. And that's why he's gone, because he's out now.
I can check the dates. I can check the dates, but I think it was around the time when it was at 0 Capricorn.
And that would be, so 0 is a boundary, right? So the spiral game that you guys envisioned, like Capricorn, so 0 is about the boundary, that it's protecting something, and in Capricorn it's protecting the structure, or it's protecting like the class, like the elite class that the knowledge would be allowed to go to. And then when the structure breaks apart, and then we move into 29, so 29 is 2 and 9, which is 11. This is about making it real in reality. That's ruled by Virgo. So that's about taking the knowledge and making it real, like within the mundane, within the collective. That's why he's gone, because now he's out, like, spreading the word. Does that make sense, or am I crazy?
No, it does. And you said something that is just like going back to just having been reading Tracy Twyman's The Merovingian Mythos. She goes right back, and where Holy Blood, Holy Grail only kind of goes back to Jesus's lineage, and it talks about King David, like as in Jesus was in the direct line of descendants from King David, but it never goes back further than that, where Tracy Twyman's going, I have fucking questions, and she takes it right back to the very beginning, right back, and she talks about Cain and Enoch, and how the fact of they could very well have been the same person, given two different names, but the same person. And she talks about, again, gathering up these pieces from all over the world, from the ancient Greek, the Mesopotamian, the Sumerian, all these different cultures. Even in the Aztec, they have the story of the knowledge bringer, the man who went around the world and brought them the knowledge, who taught them agriculture, who taught them language, writing, mathematics, science, and who brought civilization to that next level. And so when you just sat there and talked about like the old man being released and them bring the knowledge out, I literally, the first thing that came to my head was that thing again about Cain and Enoch, the concept of that when Cain got chucked out of the Garden of Eden, he went off and brought the knowledge that he'd been given all over the world. And it said that he's still alive, you know, so that's very interesting. Oh, I'm gonna have to go back and reread that section
That's making my head
of the book.
spin, Danny, because those things that Cain/Enoch gave to humanity, those are the same things that Hermes gave. The exact same
That's
thing.
what she says.
Yeah.
So
each one, like, that's what Hermes did. Hermes is Cain.
Hermes Justice, thrice great. That's three sides of Hermes. That's three different people, three different names with being, right?
So in the Sufi tradition, Enoch, Hermes, and Idris are the same.
The same person.
Idris is Enoch, and Idris is like the grandfather of Noah.
Yes.
And he brought knowledge which was washed away in the flood. But one of the things he brought was the knowledge of the stars, and he named the stars.
Exactly.
And if you look at the pyramids in Egypt, and how you've got those four corners and they measure up to the stars, and you've got a lion on one side, you've got a phoenix, you've got a man, and you've got a, all we see is the phoenix. All we see is the Sphinx being a lion, but that marks Leo. So the four stars are marked. And if you look at Jacob and his 12 sons, you know, Jacob and Jacob's ladder, and that
Jacob's
that's
ladder.
stone of destiny.
And the spiraling tower.
Okay?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. He had 12 sons, right? And each of them was one of the father of each of the 12 tribes of Israel. But did you know that when they formed a settlement, they formed a grand cross, and Judah was the lion, and each of those four main, and they still have those symbols on family lineages today. Now this is all where it goes. I mean, like the knowledge of Enoch was brought down, and it's been carried secretly through these family lineages. And I started researching the lion and the unicorn, and I came across all of this because Joseph's lineage was represented by a unicorn, and he was taken by his brothers and thrown down a well and sold into slavery. That is his chains. And then the unicorn gets knocked off the symbol on the gates of the palace, which is very, very meaningful. Even if it was a lorry that did it, the unicorn broke.
Yep.
And the symbol
now we have a
changed.
new crest that
and
has
Judah's family is the lion.
Yep.
Exactly. And I think if we dig deep, we're going to find a lot of answers now, because it was difficult to find them, so difficult to find them before. We couldn't find the pieces to put together, but now they're just popping up in front of us.
Everywhere we look. And now, you guys don't know, okay, because like, after my whole trip to England back in January, with the whole Glastonbury tour, and all of that kind of stuff, and the craziness that went on in Cheddar Gorge, etc., I kind of pulled a little group together, and it kind of came together very organically, really, of people who I know are looking and always looking into this kind of stuff. And Amina and I have been having this conversation because Since January, it's been non-stop. A piece drops in, a piece drops in, a piece drops in, a video gets recommended for you, someone posts the name of a book, you read an article that mentions a book, and you go, and for some reason it just highlights for you, and you go looking for it. Oh, look, someone's got a PDF. The Tracy Twyman book, I'd read an article that mentioned it. Yes, Megan, absolutely. I'd read an article that was talking about the Holy Blood, Holy Grail that mentioned Tracy Twyman's book. I went searching for the book, couldn't find that book fucking anywhere. And I put a call out on my wall saying, does anyone have a copy of this book by Tracy Twyman? And literally within 5 minutes, one of the unfuckers were like, hey, I got a copy, here you go, poof, and sends it to me in email. That's how fast the information is coming. Like, you put it in your head, and sometimes you don't even realize what information you're looking for, and you just have to be open for the next piece that falls in, because it's all interrelated. And this whole thing about symbols has really, really, really grabbed my attention. These symbols are so important because they keep coming up, and they can't keep coming up if we're not supposed to see them for what they are, or at least start looking to figure out what it is they are.
Danny, I just had to laugh. You said the pieces are falling into your hand, especially if when Amina earlier said the visualization you had with that tower and the Jenga tower and the old man, you know, all these pieces, or the guys falling down, all these levels of the Jenga tower, maybe that is the pieces that fall into your hand, right? Like, we humans are famous for we are being messy, right? We are chaos. We have people that have a clean house, but internally they are chaos. But people that are internally very well sorted are mostly chaotic in life. So our main, our main state is in chaos and not being put on a tower in nicely neat pieces. So, and also one thing, if you do a visualization again and you want to find that old man, why don't you look outside of the tower? Because if that guy is playing a game, the game is played in a realm, right? So he's
Usually
connected to a realm where you
this
can't
is the thing,
see him.
Bossy. Usually I see him somewhere in the realm. Usually I see him somewhere in the realm. Sometimes it's on a mountain. Sometimes it's in a different mountain. Sometimes it's in a desert. I usually see him with it, and this is the first time I've gone looking for him and couldn't find it anywhere.
Hey, has anybody seen that show called The Witcher?
I haven't seen it. Nick's watched a bit of it, I think. Oh, Nick watched the whole thing, he says.
It showed something very interesting. Y'all are talking about chaos magic. It's been in my head. So it has these girls, you know, they get picked out because they've got powers or whatever. But there's 4 of them, and she wants them to demonstrate chaos magic. So in one hand, they're holding flowers, like little daisies. And then in the other was a rock. And the way they got the rock to lift up is for the daisies. The daisies would just disappear, like the energy would be pulled from the daisies, and then the rock would come up. So I thought that was interesting. How,
like a sacrifice, right?
Yes, so like how they defined out chaos magic, and I found myself going, isn't that interesting?
And this is the whole thing. So Megan just said hermetics and alchemy go hand in hand. And Dawn, you are always talking about alchemy. And that's the whole thing. When you read these books that I've been reading, they talk about like the people who were so, what's the word? Not just impassioned. They were literally obsessed with alchemy, with numbers, with astrology, with symbols, because they knew the answers were there. And the people they talk about in these books, and it's so funny because I was saying to this Nick last night, we were lying in bed talking about this shit. It's not like this information is hidden. This information is out there. If you go and you research Leonardo da Vinci, If you go research Isaac Newton, Sir Francis Bacon, if you go Botticelli, you go research these guys. It's all right there. The difference is you're pulling it together and realize that they were all working the same way. They were all working on the same puzzle, if you will.
Principle.
They were working on the same puzzle, and they knew the answers were there. And it was written in the numerology, in the astrology, in the alchemy. It was written in the Bible, in the holy books, but it wasn't written as truth. It's written in between the lines, and to be able to figure out the symbols and put the pieces together. And it is yeah, Katie, exactly, unraveling the big old sweater. And that's what is going on right now. It feels like right now there's this massive unraveling, like this yeah, exactly. And now we're talking about like bubbles of consciousness, right? But there's like this unraveling of the structure of reality has been knitted into a big, ugly, disgusting acrylic sweater that no one will even wear, no matter how much you loved your auntie who gave it to you, because it's that itchy and that ugly. That's reality. And now it's like everyone is pulling the threads and pulling it apart and pulling it apart. And as it's pulling apart, we're seeing what ties it together. The invisible stitches that are tying that piece of horribleness together.
And that is why I think they trained those artificial intelligences, not rather to surveil us all the time, but to have something that takes all these informations in and finds all the puzzle pieces and makes the cross connections that we, with our, well, I don't want to say small human minds, can't see in the great picture. But yeah, for a computer that has all the knowledge fed into it, you know, you can see patterns better than with our human minds. So not even we are
in some ways
working
our
out
human
of them,
minds have been programmed, right? So this goes back. When the human mind has been continuously programmed, not just in your life, but in the generations that preceded you, for generations, programming has been done so that you don't look at certain things. Even if you just look at it from the Vatican religious point of view, you know, you must believe exactly what the Rome tells you you can believe, and if you don't,
or you're
a heretic, and you're going to be burned alive. So you can't look at anything that's occult. You can't look at anything that's numerology or astrology. And how many of the modern religions, like, I mean, I was brought up as a JW, right? Oh my God, it's all evil. Oh, it's the work of the devil. You know, like astrology is the work of the devil. Numerology is the work of the devil. Meditation is the work of the devil. You know, well, this is all this programming, but it's been generationally.
Yeah, they were allowed to do it.
Oh, of course.
They did it.
Oh, of course. Of course, exactly. Which is why fucking the Vatican's got one of the biggest observatories in the goddamn world to watch the stars. Gee, I wonder why.
Aren't they owning pretty much all of them?
Yeah, the best astrology books you can get are holy books. Like, to be honest. Which is funny because, like you said, oh, it's from the devil. No, actually it's not, but anyway.
Yeah, but this is... I went into this rant last night, literally, that went on. I don't know how late it was before Nick and I finally fell asleep. It probably some god-awful hour. That because so much of this is in our faces now, and granted, now, maybe it wasn't 10 years ago. Maybe it wasn't so easy to find the information 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 30 years ago. But right now, all the information is right there in front of us. And when you have those people who, even when shown this information, shown all the facts, they cannot, it literally is cognitive dissonance. It cannot compute into their heads. They can't see it. They cannot, because the programming is so incredibly And again, I think sometimes when we talk about, for example, we talk about DNA and we talk about genetic inheritance, that I honestly think that some of this programming is not just what we were taught in Sunday school, and it wasn't just that we were taught in the church in this lifetime, but it's like a genetically inherent piece that's been programmed into us for generations. Because I don't think they could have gotten as far as they have without having programmed for generations, to the point of that it is now no longer just something that you've learned or been indoctrinated with, but it is literally within your DNA to try and hold you there. And that's this breaking point that I think we're at right now. And we talk about things like breaking the old bond, some of the kind of, I don't want to label it new age, because that's not really fair. People talk about things like you have to break your soul contract. You know, finding your soul contract and going back and breaking that soul contract, or going back and healing the wounds of past lives, or things that have happened in your family line. But some of that may actually be true on a much more visceral level. Does that make sense? That these are pieces that have literally just become part of our DNA. Yeah, I don't know, guys. I don't know. All I know is it seems like there's a whole shitload of stuff opening up, and I find it very interesting that as I'm seeing more and more people having these kind of conversations in the internal, the external out there is getting more and more insane, as if the external world needs to become more convoluted, more absolutely ridiculous and crazy to distract you. Like they will throw everything at us right now to keep us distracted. Oh, I don't know. I think I foresee maybe a new show coming on. We'll have to see. I'll be talking to certain people later on. Just certain people. On the flip side, jumping really, really shockingly out of this subject, one of the things I wanted to talk about was, and again, we're not talking about paying energy into it. We're not talking about buying into the shit that's going on right now and becoming emotionally involved by it. But this shit is not over, and this shit's only going to get worse over the course of this summer and this year. So I'm putting a call out again to people. This is the time to be prepping. This is the time to be aware and be prepared. Yes, exactly, Monty. Monty, be the neutral observer, but the neutral observer who's got a stocked pantry and some extra cash under their pillow, so that they don't have to wander out amongst all that fuckery and have to deal with it. Honestly, shit is going to get, I think, my gut has been saying, much worse over the course of the summer. So I'm putting a call out to everyone, like, be prepared. Be prepared, because we have no fucking clue what's coming next. None whatsoever. Really? You have to come on my lap right now? Really? Oh. Someone's going to come visit me. No, lick my face. Ugh. Oh, right up the nose, too. We've got, it could, yeah, bossy, it could get real ugly. And in those times, it's going to be the times where you're going to want to just stay in your house and work on all that stuff in your internal realm. You know, like, are you going down now? Okay, go down. Down. Thank you. No, do claws. Ow. Go get Nick.
Oh,
go get Nick.
Question.
Hold on a second. Yeah, go ahead, Dawn. I'm going to get the dog to go away.
So, like, some of us live in big towns here, so a lot of craziness. So they're dropping off loads of bricks all over town, and all this bullshit. So like my neighbor
You know what you
comes
guys
over.
should do? Here you go, Dawn. You should go organize a group of people with pickup trucks to go pick up all the bricks and go, I don't know, go build a garden well somewhere.
The city's doing that. They're going around picking up all the bricks.
Nice.
But my neighbor comes over here last night, and y'all know I don't like guns, right? But here's my little 380, and I have a 9, and he's over here, my neighbor. Now, granted, he has like an artillery over there. My neighbor's like crazy, okay? He goes, we need to get you set up. So, of course, I have brand new guns. They're in drawers. I don't like guns. So he gets me all set up last night, and I have to go drop off meds to a patient. He's like, this needs to be in your car at all times. And I'm like, got this thing going, right? Because I don't like guns, and I don't like violence. So I'm trying to find a way to bring that energy into a more of a balanced deal. Is anybody else having these issues?
No, but you're talking to the wrong person, because I have a bad temper and I would have no problem looking after my family. So
No, I know. I mean, at the end of the day,
at the end of the day,
I spent 10 years in the hood. I mean, I do know how these people operate. Okay. Not proud of that, but yeah. So, but yeah, it's one of those things where I find myself saying, are really looking at the energies I'm engaging in, even the smallest. And, I just wanted to bring that up because I just wanted to know if anybody else is feeling this.
But here's the thing, Dawn. For you, for example, you have a lot of friends around that neighborhood. Could someone else make deliveries for you to deliver meds so that you're not so that you don't have to be put into a personal situation where you have to make that decision? Do you know what I'm saying?
If our outer reflects our inner.
Yeah.
You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I get it. But this is it's never cut and dry. I don't think it's cut and dry, Dawn. And I think that it's one of those things that when it comes down to it, it's going to be the moment.
Dawn, your answer is in your question, and you know it, and you do know it deep down. You've already told me. In asking the question, you've already answered it. It's literally true.
Do I choose invisibility?
Yes.
Do I choose?
Yes.
In the in between?
Yes.
I go?
Yes.
Or do I engage? See, that's my thing. Like, I'm in this right now.
Right.
Yeah, but you know what?
My mind.
That's what I'm saying. It's the moment. It's not going to be something that you're ever going to be able to answer ahead of time, I don't think, because every moment is going to be different, and every moment's going to present it in a different way, and it could present in a way that you've never even fathomed it could come forward.
Right.
Right?
May I chip in?
Yeah, boss.
I see this. I see this like I see the point of the people that don't want to have guns. I see the point of the people that want to have guns. I see it like this. Over here in Germany, you're not allowed to have a weapon. You're not even allowed to use hard force if someone breaks into your house, right? Like, that is for me the perfect example of a slave society. In America,
not
it
even
is
allowed
different.
to defend yourself.
Yeah, exactly. In America, it is different. You're not, in that sense, a slave colony because you're allowed to have guns. But then, you know, there's always the argument, yeah, but big government has drones and airplanes and tanks. But there's a very thin line. A tank cannot kick in your door and take you to a concentration camp in the middle of the night, right? It is always people with guns that do that. And if you have the chance to, or you have the right to defend yourself against criminal people that want to hurt you, or even criminal people from the government that want to hurt you, if you have that chance to defend yourself, use it to defend, but do not use it to oppress other people, right?
I want to just jump in here really quick. And Dawn, take from this what you will. There is a subtle piece of programming, and we've discussed this, that new age programming that is, well, you paid energy into that situation, so therefore you created that situation. That's fucking bullshit. It's true on a level, it's true on certain levels, but it is used as a way to victimize you, so that you are always the problem. No one else is the problem. You're the problem. You brought that into your life. You manifested that. You paid your energy, and therefore you made that situation happen for yourself. Don't fall into that trap, because there's the shit that we manifest for ourselves, and there's the shit that is just part of that external insanity.
See, that's the character role. See, let's not, each one of us has a character role. So there are certain things built into this character role. So it's our job to step out of that shit. And it's fucking hard. Like if you watch Devs, does anybody watch Devs in here? Y'all
I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. It's on my list. It's on my
determinism.
list.
Fuck determinism.
Yeah.
Fuck determinism. So this is where I'm at in my brain right now. It's really like, because what encompasses the role, and how do I know if I'm in the role or stepping out of the role? Like,
and how do you know that there is a role?
That in a moment.
Right, and that's why I said it's the moment. Everything is in the moment, because you can all plan things out. We've all done it. We've built up a situation in our head and how we would react and how what we're going to do and what we do. And then when that moment comes, it plays out completely differently. And therefore, you're put into a place where you are going to react and you're going to do what happens in the moment. Right? So
everybody needs to
watch
who that.
You are. It comes down to, Dawn, you know who you are. Regardless of anything else, regardless of titles, regardless of labels, regardless of anything else, Dawn knows who Dawn is. And what happens in the moment is going to play out in the moment, and you will react exactly as you're going to react. And it's not about blaming. It's not about taking on a role even. Because Dawn is Dawn. Danny is Danny. We are who we are. We react how we react. We're always learning. We're always trying to, do better, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality of it is, regardless of characters, regardless of anything, the role that is put in front of us sometimes to play is just that moment. And you can't.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. Yeah, I mean, I think, honest to God, y'all, we have the ability to incarnate forward and backwards in time. We can incarnate into any character we fucking want to. And that's why, at the end of the day, it's a school.
Yeah.
And everybody needs to watch Devs. We need to have a fucking discussion about Devs, because it will open up a whole nother realm of thinking behind this. And I think these things are being put out there for a reason.
Yeah. And Katie, I agree with you completely. I just want to be a farmer too. The role I
that whole Unfuckit Island thing could be closer than we all thought.
Just find it for us, because we'll go. I'm done with all this shit can all just go right away. I'm so not interested. I don't want to play that role. I don't want to play in that game. It has zero interest to me. Nothing about it. Yeah, I mean, I just want to be a hermit, kind of like be a farmer, a hermit, just live on my land with a really, really good internet collection, so I can, like, download all the books I want, and just do my gardens. My gardens are gorgeous, by the way. It's raining today for the first time in like ridiculous amount of time.
Hey, Danny, if
yes,
you really want to do that, instead of just talk about it, if you really wanted to do that, you would make it your prime intention, and you would pursue that. That's how things actually. I'm not trying to come down on you, because it's more of a general.
I'm just going to add a little something to that. You go ahead. You finish.
Oh, I was just going to say that's how anything gets done by anybody at any time. If you really want to do it something, you actually do it, and you make it primary in your purpose to do it. It's like, and those kinds of decisions are actually made in the moment, which you've been talking about. You decide in the moment, and then obviously linearly we make it so by this, and this. I tell you, ever since I've met Dawn, I have become more and more and more in the fucking moment in my decision making. It goes counter to everything I've ever been taught all of my life, but I'm loving it. And it's life is so much more interesting and exciting to me personally by being this way than being the old way that I was so accustomed to and used to, and everybody else around me held to be the solid truth of how you do shit. It don't really work. Not in the to me anyway. I've got 4 years under my belt plus of doing this, and it's wonderful. I will offer that as an observation to the rest of the world as such.
The magic
Anyway.
in the moment. Magic's in the moment. If you're present, as long as you're present.
So here's the thing, Maury. Every time I say, and you guys have no idea how many times I've said, I'm done. I'm done with doing shows. I'm done with running groups. I just want to be like off over there on my little farmland. I don't fucking living in a cave. I don't care. I'm done. Anne knows. Anne has a good idea how many times I say this. It's a lot. And every time I get that close to being like, no, I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I get, and every other week, I get out of the blue emails, messages, comments on social media, YouTube, of people saying, thank you so much. You keep my sanity, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And I said, and I don't, no, can't quit. Got to keep going. So I just keep going. But yeah, no more. Trust me. I've been a lot closer to that. Just going, fuck this. I'm just, you know. But I keep going. We all keep going. That's all there is to it. I'm going to have to let you guys go because the dogs have told me it's 10 minutes to their dinner time. And they're literally losing their shit now because they want to eat 10 minutes early, apparently. They're driving me fucking nuts. All of you. I love you guys. This was an awesome conversation. For you guys who are unfuckers, you guys know the library is there. The books that I've discussed are in the library. So you can go download them yourselves. And I can't make the library link public. I'm sorry to everyone on YouTube land. I can't make the link public because then I will get hit with fucking copyright and all that kind of shit. So it's available to members. So I'm going to say goodbye to you all. And I love everyone. And we'll talk again very soon. Bye, guys.
One small step for man.